Okay, so now we're at the point where we need to make it so that our styling will collapse this whenever we click on this menu button, because right now it's not doing anything. And the way that we decided that we're going to do that is we're going to limit the height of this nav. So let's take a look up here and just a double check. So what we're talking about is this nav whose ID is global nav. And what we can do is just limit the height so that it matches the same height as this anchor menu, right? So then that's the only thing that shows, and then this UL that's down below it just doesn't, it's not visible, right? So let's just jump over here and we're going to find where that is. All right, so here's the A menu, okay? And basically right up above it is the actual full nav. And so what I just said was we wanted to make the height match. So I'm going to copy the height of the A menu and I'm going to change it so that the natural height is matching 2.25 m. And I'm also going to tell it to have an overflow of hidden so that it hides everything else that's there. Now, whenever I say overflow hidden, it doesn't mean that it's going to hide it from a screen reader. It just means that it will not be like visually visible, okay? So anyway, let's just save that real quick and let's do a test and see how it looks. Let's do a refresh and then, okay, it's hidden now, which is exactly what we want. But the problem is now we click the button and then nothing happens. So now what we need to have is something that's going to basically effectively change that. And if you come over here, I want to just copy this section banner nav global nav. I want to copy that selector and I am going to now add a dot nav underscore open class to it so that basically whenever it sees the global nav ID that has a nav open class attached to it, then it's going to change the overflow, copy that, to visible, okay? And the other thing that we have to do still is we need to change the height because the height is still going to be small. So even if the overflow is visible, it might still do some wonky behavior. So I also need to change the height then to auto, okay? So let's save that and we're going to test it. Come back over here, hit refresh, okay? And then if I click on this, you can see that it will open and close it properly. And now the thing is that it's still going to do the same thing here as well. And you may end up liking that. You might like that you have to access a menu in order to get it. You might like having the same exact kind of menu that's collapsible and openable and all that stuff in these two different screens. And this is actually a strategy you can use to get instead of just normal like rollover menus to pop up, to get clickable menus. So really it's your decision. But in this demo, what I'm going to show you how to do is make it so that this menu button disappears on this screen and that this becomes always visible at a higher breakpoint, okay? Okay, so now at this point what we want to do is we want to make it so that these properties, visible and auto, are automatically going to apply when we get to that larger viewport. Because remember, right now we are in the mobile first approach, so all of the styles that are loading first are the mobile ones, and that's why if you go back over here, you know, this menu is still behaving this way because it's still remembering, you know, the first rules that it encounters. But anyway, if you come out here, we want this to be always visible, right? So, and essentially the properties, if you remember, that we just wrote are the ones that are for nav open. Well, I'm going to copy this whole rule. What we're going to do is we're going to put this down in our 600 plus media query, but we're going to get rid of the part that says nav open because we want it to just always be true of nav global. All right, but so that I don't have to retype everything, I'm just going to put this one in my clipboard. I'm going to come down to the media query section, which is right here. And I'm going to find the one that is for 600 plus because that's where our menu for the navigation actually starts to change. So I'm going to find the right place to put it, and it's actually going to be right here at the top because it is more universal than the unordered list that's inside of it. So I'm going to paste that there. I'm going to clean it up just a little bit. And I'm going to get rid of where it says nav open. I'm going to get rid of that appended class. All right, so let's save that and let's just test it really quickly. Hit refresh, and now when I hit refresh, see, it just stays open, whereas if I go here, okay, it's actually closing again, because it's taking those older properties, the original properties, I should say, that it first loaded, of making the height 2.25 m and making the overflow hidden here. So now the trick is going to be to get the menu button to basically disappear on this particular larger screen, right? So that's going to be pretty simple. All I've got to do is make a selector, copy this, and down in the same media query just below it, I'm going to affect the A tag that has the menu ID attached to it. And I'm just going to tell it to be in the 600 plus media query to have a display of none. And the reason that I can get away with that is because if you look up in the normal rule up here, let's find the normal menu button right here, you see that I have it telling it to be display block. So even if like on the 600 media query it toggles to be display none, whenever it goes back down to the smaller view, it is still going to see this display block rule on line 58, and it'll kick back in. Okay, so let's do a refresh and make sure that that is actually going to work the way we expect it to. And you see here, the menu button just disappears on the larger screens. And here we can click it and it still works. Okay, pretty cool. So now the thing is, what happens if JavaScript is disabled on your browser? Let's do a little test really fast, and I'm going to get this as big as I can get it before the media query kicks in. And I want to inspect something just so I can get the developer tools to open up. And then what you'll see down here is where these little three dots are. If you click on that, you can go here to settings. And when you open up the settings, what you can go and find is down at the bottom where it says debugger is under disable JavaScript. I want you to click on that. Now what we'll have to do is we can close this, and then we need to refresh the page. And when I click on this menu button, you see nothing is happening. If you also look here, you'll see that that class isn't being swapped out or toggled. I'm clicking, 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 right? Nothing is happening, right? And that's because JavaScript is now disabled. And if I come over here, it's not a big deal, right? On a larger screen, because I can see my menu, not a problem. But here, my menu's broken, so nobody could navigate. So what we can do is we use this thing called NOSCRIPT. Let's go into the source code real quick. And what we basically need to do is recreate this unordered list, and we can put it down at the bottom of the page inside of a NoScript tag. And what NoScript does is it only enabled whenever the browser senses that JavaScript is disabled, okay? And so it shows whatever is inside of the NoScript tag, and it only shows it whenever there's no JavaScript capability. So I am going to copy this unordered list, because this would be an important navigational tool to still have access to. And what I want you to notice is that because this is just an anchor tag and not just a button, remember before I said sometimes, people will tell you that buttons are the right things to use whenever you're trying to trigger a behavior. And there is truth to that. But the thing that's also nice about this is that whenever you don't have JavaScript enabled, this becomes a fallback method. And you can use this anchor reference to jump to a specific place on the page. In this case, it's going to be an ID that I create down below called navigate. And I'm going to put it inside of a NoScript tag, so that it's only going to appear whenever JavaScript's disabled. And so whenever you click on this button, instead of it, the JavaScript firing and actually working properly, it'll actually jump to that navigate unordered list links. All right, so I already copied that in my clipboard. And then the place where you'd put NoScript is immediately after the script that you wrote. It's literally called NoScript, like this. And we're going to put an ending tag to it, and then whatever goes inside of that NoScript tag is going to show up whenever JavaScript is disabled. So this is where I would probably want to also put a nav tag, right? And I'm going to put the nav tag, and I'll give it an ID of navigate. Oops. Let's do this, navigate. All right, and inside of that nav tag is where I'll paste that unordered list, and I'll clean this up a little bit. Let's tab that in, okay. and make sure that this is actually, yeah, there we go. Tabbed it in so it's nicely nested. And now we're going to end up having the same behavior, or at least the same links here whenever JavaScript is not available. And the other thing too that I can do to kind of clean this area up down here, it can get really confusing when you have a lot of JavaScript stuff happening, is that I could put some comments in here. And so the first thing that I'll do is I'll go in and I'll put a comment in that says load jQuery CDN library. And then I can highlight that and then put an HTML comment around that. And then the next thing down here is that I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to write some custom jQuery for mobile menu, okay? And then again, I'll put HTML comment around it. And then, actually, I think I put that in the wrong place. Let's copy that, and I'm going to put it right above this script. That was what I meant to do. All right, so that's the custom jQuery, and then this is the NoScript. Let's say jQuery NoScript for mobile menu. Okay, so that helps us understand a little bit better what's happening. Let's save that, and let's now do a test while this is still disabled. Let's hit refresh. And now whenever I click on this, if I close that and I click on menu, you see what happened, and is it jumped down to the bottom of the page. So now I actually have my navigational menu, all right? And you can style this so that it looks nice in the event that somebody doesn't have JavaScript. Now, if we want to just double check and make sure that everything still works right, we can go to inspect it again, and we need to go back here to the settings. We need to go scroll all the way down and find debugger. Make sure that JavaScript is actually, looks like it's turned off. Anyway, make sure that that's set like that. And you can also say restore defaults and reload. So let's hit refresh, and it's still not working. So let's do restore defaults. And let's go back here. Let's hit refresh. And then now you see that the JavaScript NoScript thing went away. That means that JavaScript is enabled again, and I can click on that. All right, so if you have trouble actually getting any of your JavaScript to come back on, just go scroll down all the way in your settings and reload the normal inspector properties, and it'll load up JavaScript just fine. Okay, so now you've made a completely functional mobile menu that disappears on larger screens, and that also has a functional fallback for not having JavaScript. Pretty cool.